The boogeyman is considered by many to be fear incarnate. But what is its true name? Tonight, you and your two friends will find out. And what is concealed within the Boogeyman Inn's secret? And who will die? A relaxing dark fantasy horror story. The Secret of Boogeyman Inn, Part 5, the final part. Previously on Beer Tales. I must ask, the green-skinned witch Essa says through the glowing surface of the blue audio crystal in front of you. Where are you currently? We're at the Boogeyman Inn, the human paladin Gina replies. Why? Gina asks. What? Of all the places? Essa exclaims. You need to get out of there right now, because... Essa manages to say, just before the halfling wizard Frogrin's blue audio crystal turns completely dark. And as soon as that happens, you are shown a vision of the future. Within the gaping black hole in the wall of room 1408, you see the mysterious golden chest containing a magic scroll. Your vision suddenly flashes and the golden chest stands empty, and in front of the chest there now lies the blurry vision of a person, and this person is dead. And thoughts, not of your own, whispers the questions. What is concealed within the Boogeyman Inn's secret? And do you know Boogeyman's true name? A quick thank you to my Patreon members who make these stories possible. Join my Patreon to get early access and more. Link in the description. This is a Beer Tale. As soon as you are back in reality, and back on room 1408's blood-red carpet again, Frogrin frustratedly exclaims, Frickety frick! As his blue audio crystal lies dark and soundless, as if slumbering in a grave in the human paladin Gina's hand. In the very next moment, you see strands of energy in various colors leave your head and move into Gina's and Frogrin's heads. Gina's eyes start darting back and forth. Someone dead! Someone will die in this room, Gina states as her eyes keep darting back and forth until her eyebrows raise. But there are only the three of us here. Gina's eyes suddenly grow wide in shock. One of us is going to die. But who? Gina's gaze lingers on her open palms, then at Frogrin, finally at you. I think, Frogrin continues, based on our friend's vision and your realization, Gina, that we better get the heck out of here right now. And our friendly neighborhood witch Essa doesn't get that upset without a good reason. So let's just go. Frogrin finishes as he runs towards the only door of room 1408. But Gina utters as the shock subsides somewhat. What about the secret? Gina exclaims as her eyes dart back and forth between the gaping black hole in the wall and the door of room 1408. Screw the secret for now, Frogrin shouts. We can come back for it later, if we can. Well, okay, let's, Gina calmly replies, as she also starts bolting towards the door, her long blonde hair following her like floating silk. Come along now, friend, she quickly utters as she makes an inviting hand gesture towards the door. But as Frogrin turns the handle, it crumbles into dust. "What kind of sorcery is this?" Frogrin shouts. Gina's body suddenly spasms for a second. She freezes in place, grinding her teeth as she puts two of her fingers on her right temple, concentrating on something. "This energy," Gina groans. "It's black magic, no doubt about it." Frogrin lifts one of his hands into the air, fixes his gaze with the door of room 1408 and shouts, "Leviata telekinesa!" A bumping sound can be heard from the door, as if someone had just tackled it straight on with all of their body weight. But nothing happens. Frogrin then lifts both of his arms into the air and shouts, "Telekinesa Ultima!" as his green ale-pint-shaped glasses start glowing in a searingly green light. An unseen shockwave then hits you, one you can feel deep within your chest, and the door of room 1408 still remains, just like it was before. Frogrin huffes and wheezes. "This is the room's only door!" Frogrin shouts in panic as sweat drips along his forehead. "And there are no windows either, so this door is our only way out!" And as Frogrin shouts that last sentence, there's a tingling behind your right ear. You see darkness, and within it, Frogrin's blue audio crystal, the true color of his crystal. For some reason, this color shifts from blue to light blue, then to cyan, and finally to purple, before it shifts back to its true blue color again. This blue light then grows brighter. You can see the silhouette of a person arriving at the Boogeyman Inn. Next, you see yourself, Gina and Frogrin, leaving the Boogeyman Inn with that very same person. In this vision, you were saved, but in this next part of your vision, you see the blue crystal shift its hue to light blue instead of blue, and you see yourself, Gina and Frogrin, alone as the Boogeyman Inn itself falls down into darkness and completely disappears out of view in your reality because of the actions of people unseen, and perhaps even because of an action by yourself. No one is coming to help you. You, Gina and Frogrin, are on your own. Back in reality again, standing on the blood-red carpet of room 1408 and covered by candlelit darkness and the room's oxblood-colored wallpaper, you hear Gina groaning for a moment. Her fingers finally let go of her right temple. "Yes, this door is our only way out, Frogrin, but that horrendous energy has dissipated for now at least. Thankfully," Gina finishes with a deep sigh. Rainbow-colored strands of energy then leave your right ear and travel into Gina and Frogrin. "Oh," Gina whispers as her eyes grow wide. "So no one is coming to help us, huh?" Frogrin pouts as he scratches his ruffled brown hair. "I think we should," Gina manages to say, just before you feel another tingling behind your right ear. You see darkness, and in this darkness in front of you, the foyer of the Boogeyman Inn slowly manifests. Its double entrance doors that lead outside stand open, but they are suddenly slammed closed by something unseen, and you hear the deafening echo of a sound reminiscent of a key being turned. What's more, as if something invisible was standing in front of the doors With a paintbrush, a sentence is slowly being drawn on the doors in something red, reminiscent of blood. This sentence says, "Only those who know the boogeyman's true name shall be free." Everything gets dark, and a pair of light bulb-like purple eyes suddenly stares back at you as a green, hairy, and clawed hand reaches out towards your face. Back again in the gloom of room 1408, your two friends stand beside you. "The entrance doors to the inn are locked too!" Frogrin exclaims in panic. "The boogeyman's true name," Dina mumbles to herself with a pointer finger and thumb on her chin. "And those purple eyes and that green hand," Dina continues, mumbling to herself. "That really was the boogeyman." Dina's eyes grow wide. The air then starts feeling thick, as if you were underwater. Dina instinctively draws her silver sword, Shilijido. "The boogeyman is still here!" Dina exclaims in panic, and suddenly hear a sound coming from the door of room 1408. A sound that reminds of someone carving wood or sharpening a pen. Frogrin jumps back a bit as a dark shadow immediately covers the door, just as this carving sound starts. The carving sound coming from the door continues, but you can't see a thing, only the pitch black shadow covering it. Dina slowly and cautiously faces the door as the carving persists. In the blink of an eye, the pitch black shadow is gone, as is the carving sound itself. Dina gasps and covers her mouth with both of her hands, and on the door, as if written by a 5-year-old wood carver, there are now crude letters carved directly into the surface of the door. They say, "The secret is your salvation." "What the?" Frogrin whispers as he turns his head towards Dina with an expectant look. "Well, these wood carvings reek of black magic energy," Dina states. "And this, the secret is your salvation message. Our friend's vision did show us there's a scroll hidden within the golden chest. Could this message be referring to the scroll?" And thoughts not of your own whispers, "What is concealed within the Boogeyman Inn's secret, and who will die?" "But Gina," Frogrin interrupts, "the dead body from our friend's vision was lying just in front of that chest." "Yes, this time we need to use extreme caution, and under no circumstances shall any of us touch neither the chest nor the scroll, okay?" "Sure, no touchy-touchy then," Frogrin replies. "Now when you mention it, we've finally found the secret, but we don't even know what's written on it. So I'd say the only way to properly uncover the secret of the Boogeyman Inn is to actually read that scroll. But how in the name of Haladar can we unfold the scroll without anyone actually touching it?" Gina smiles, looks at Frogrin and then at you, and replies, "I think I have an idea." The three of you now stand in front of the wide open and mysterious golden chest in the gaping black hole of room 1408, and at the bottom of the chest, just as your vision predicted, lies a magic scroll that possibly holds the key to your salvation. Its paper looks yellowed and brittle, and the scroll itself is neatly rolled up. just like a carpet in mini format, and on it there's a purple wax seal with the letter W, which is the only thing keeping the scroll from opening. Frogrin? Gina asks. Yes, Frogrin replies. You're adept at levitation spells, am I right? Gina wonders. Yeah, I know a few. Why? Frogrin asks. Would it be possible to remove that wax seal and then unfold the scroll with any of those spells? Gina asks. Genius, Gina, Frogrin exclaims. Yeah, I actually think the spell Mage Hand would work perfectly. Be sure to handle the scroll extra carefully though, Gina states. The scroll appears really old and looks like it could crumble to dust at any given moment, and just one wrong move could end up with one of us dead. No worries, Gina, Frogrin says with a grin. You're looking at the very best Mage Hand user in the land of Haladar. Frogrin opens up both of his hands, faces them towards the mysterious magic scroll, and twirls his fingers. Gina's body tenses up and stands completely still, as she dares neither move nor breathe. Just like that, a pair of transparent hands, similar to Frogrin's own, appears out of thin air, right next to the magic scroll, and in just a few, but very tense seconds, Frogrin's transparent hands carefully removes the purple wax seal and unfolds the scroll, without even a speck of dust falling from it. Frogrin then mumbles something under his breath, and the two transparent hands transform into a transparent cube that covers the scroll completely. This move keeps the scroll floating in the air and locked in place, and thus keeps it safe from any hasty movements. There, Frogrin says with a sigh. It's safe to read the scroll now. Pretty cool, eh? Frogrin grins at you and Gina. He lets his hands fall to the sides, and you see a single drop of sweat run down his forehead. Gina lets out a deep sigh of relief as she finally dares moving and breathing again. That was intense, Gina chuckles. I appreciate the careful handling, Frogrin. Nah, think nothing of it. I could have done that during my beauty sleep. And you're welcome. Frogrin finishes, as two additional drops run down his forehead, forcing him to wipe them off with his green and brown arm sleeve. As Gina and Frogrin are bantering with one another, you're the only one that notices something else falling out of the scroll. Something that floats downwards and lands just by your feet. Something thin, another paper that was hidden within the scroll. So what now? Frogrin asks while looking at the two of you. We still gotta learn the Boogeyman's true name somehow. Gina stands tall, moves closer to the scroll, and replies, I'll read it. Maybe it'll provide us with some clue to the Boogeyman's true name and to our salvation, whatever that means. Just be sure to keep the scroll afloat while I read it, Frogrin. Frogrin nods as he reaches out one of his hands towards the transparent cube containing the mysterious scroll. You can see there are only a few lines of text on the scroll as Gina starts reading. Spells of sovereignty. 3 ways to control the masses through the media. Wait, Frogrin whispers in shock. The media? That's the news, isn't it? Gina continues to read the scroll without answering Frogrin's question. 1. Shame. Ridicule someone publicly to make the masses turn against them. Whoa, Frogrin comments. That sounds a lot like what happened to that wandering bard, Zeldris. It does? Gina asks curiously. Yeah, he once sang about the Loma Mansion owner's daughter. Then the news started painting him as a woman hater out of the blue. No one wanted to listen to his songs anymore. Sounds bad, Gina comments. I never met Seldris, but the masses' reaction is understandable. I wouldn't want to listen to a woman hater either, for obvious reasons. Gina finishes, gesturing to herself. The thing is, Frogin continues, Seldris went on trial and was, despite the prejudiced hatred from the masses, ultimately deemed innocent of any wrongdoing. But, Gina interrupts, it's actually pretty common for the actual crooks to avoid punishment by the law. But this time was different, Frogrin confidently states. Because I actually heard Seldris play that exact song in person once. Beautiful. The song didn't say anything bad about the Loma Mansion owner's daughter at all. It didn't? Dina cautiously asks. Not a word. But despite the trial's verdict, and despite it being in Seldris' favor, the damage had already been done. The news had already portrayed him as a woman hater, and since the news didn't cover the trial's final verdict, Seldris kept being seen as a woman hater. Thus, Seldris the Wandering Bard could never sing a song publicly again, nor would he be accepted for any other jobs. Thus, he stood completely without the power to regain any form of income. And in the end, Seldris' 3 daughters all starved to death while listening to his father's songs. And it is said that Seldris himself kept singing until he joined them. Tragic, Gina whispers while rubbing her eyes. She looks to the side, lost in thought for a moment. Seldris' reputation, income and family was destroyed by using shame as a weapon? Gina wonders before she continues reading. 2. Guilt. Make the masses feel guilty about something to make them do your bidding. Gina gasps and puts one of her hands over her mouth. This sounds just like that charity campaign. What do you mean, Gina? Frogin asks. Well, there was this one charity campaign for cats, Gina replies. You see, I really love cats. Many charities show beautiful images of cats, and I love donating to them. But this particular charity had posters that showed horrific images of malnourished cats, followed by the text, Our life is a misery. Please don't abandon us. Donate 20 gold to save a cat. Sounds awful, Frogin comments. Yeah, it really was, Dina continues. But I just couldn't help myself. I felt such a heavy lump in my gut as soon as I saw those posters that I donated 120 gold in an instant. The thought of having saved 6 cats made that heavy lump in my gut dissolve. But something lingered. I think I now understand what that lingering feeling was. What was it? Frogin asks. I had been tricked, manipulated, controlled, and just like the scroll says, I had done that charity campaign's bidding, and not just because of the kindness of my heart, but because that campaign had been designed to make people feel guilty. Whoa, it all makes sense now, Frogin comments, shocked. Dina slowly nods before she continues reading the scroll. 3. The most powerful way to control the masses. Fear. Fear, of course, Frogin mutters. Dina continues. Fear keep the masses' energy levels low by constantly exposing them to threats, real or designed, war, terrorism, pit people against each other, diseases, make people hate each other by using the media to keep the masses in constant fear. They won't grow spiritually. Instead, they will be constantly motivated with fear to act and feel exactly the way you want, and thus the masses will be your eternal slaves. Gina finishes. Heavy stuff, Frogrin utters. Horrible, Gina exclaims. This is just horrible. Gina puts her hands on her cheeks for a moment, until she places a pointer finger and thumb against her chin instead. But now when I think about it, the news does spread a lot of fear, similar to what is described here. Could the news really, unknowingly, or perhaps some even knowingly, are they trying to control us by influencing our actions and our feelings? Well, Frogan replies after a moment of silence. I've never been a fan of the media anyway, to be honest. Understandable, Gina replies. Well, I for one will definitely be keeping the concepts of shame, guilt, and fear in mind from now on as I listen to the media and analyze whether any message is trying to influence my actions or feelings. Gina nods to herself. After another moment of silence, Gina continues. At least now we've finally uncovered the secret of the Boogeyman Inn, Gina says. Yeah, Frogan replies. We managed to avoid touching anything inappropriate too. The scroll is undamaged, and none of us are dead either. Isn't that great? It is, Gina replies. But now, even after learning the secret, we're still left with a few mysterious questions. Who hid it here? What is this salvation that the card message on the door spoke of? And as it turns out, there's actually another secret of the Boogeyman Inn we need to uncover in order to escape this inn. The Boogeyman's true name. Yeah, Frogren replies grimly. And right now, we're totally without any leads. Which sucks. In the next moment, you're holding a yellowed paper in your hand. That very same paper that fell out of the scroll of sovereignty just a moment ago. What's that? Frogrin asks as he eyes the mysterious paper and then meets your gaze. It fell out of the scroll? Gina asks. Maybe there's more to the Boogeyman Inn's mysterious secret after all. Gina gently scratches one of her chins. Well, we need to decide later what to do with the scroll. Right now, I feel I've done enough reading for today. You can read the letter you discovered if you want, friend. Gina finishes with a smile. She locks her gaze with yours and then welcomingly gestures towards your hand. The yellowed paper in your hand is covered by handwritten text, elegant squiggly letters, as if written by monks a very long time ago. The letter reads as follows. I truly hope that whoever finds this letter has a good heart, because if not, then our world is in grave danger. But regardless if your heart is good or not, I'm most likely dead as you're reading this, or worse. My court magistrate, it was his doing all along. He kept feeding me with guilt, shame, and fear, which suppressed my emotions at a much deeper level than I ever could have managed on my own. He tricked me without me even realizing it, and I, the fool that I am, just swallowed it all. My loved ones, dead. My kingdom in ruins, destroyed by my hands. Oh, why didn't I realize it sooner? How could I have been so blind? But forgive me, I digress. It is too late for me. All that matters now is that you need to stop him. Because if you're reading this, then that means I failed in doing so. If you consider yourself not powerful enough to stop him, then research this legend. Once every 2,000 years, an entity of unknown race and unknown origin is reincarnated as the most powerful magic user ever to exist in the land of Haladar, an entity known as the Oracle, a name of legend, one that dates back millennia, even in my time, so it may not even be true. But if it could help you stop the magistrate, it'll be worth it. Please, promise me, for everyone and everything, stop him. Stop Magistrate W. Despite the W at the end of the letter, there are traces of other letters right after it. The rest of the magistrate's name appears to have been erased a long time ago, magically or otherwise. Magistrate W, Gina whispers, as Frogren scratches the back of his brown and ruffled hair without a word, after which you once again hear that thought that isn't your own, repeating the familiar words. The boogeyman remains, but do you know the boogeyman's true name? But this time there are more words accompanying that thought that you haven't heard before, and these words are the most chilling. And who will die? Once again, staring at the yellowed letter, its elegant and squiggly text continues with, "Forgive me for not keeping my darkness at bay." And as you read the final line of this 1,000-year-old letter, your voice changes to that of a familiar voice from the past. Signed, King Balthasar Benedict Bartholomeus III. King Balthasar of the Forgotten Kingdom, Gina exclaims. So that's why his emotions ended up so deeply repressed. This mysterious Magistrate W manipulated Balthasar and was the one really behind the destruction of the Forgotten Kingdom. Then? Sounds about right, Frogren replies. You really are the thinker, Gina. Frogren winks at you and Gina giggles in response. But, Frogren continues. Considering the Forgotten Kingdom was destroyed 1,000 years ago, this so-called W is most likely dead. So no need to worry about him, at least. Froggen finishes with a satisfied grin. Gina replies, lost in thought. But wait, the letter in your hand isn't actually ending with Balthasar's signature. There are no more elegant and squiggly letters, sure, but at the bottom there are the same crude letters that look just like the letters that were carved directly into the room of room 1408. These letters say Doranium Restorium, and there's a tingling behind your right ear. You see the door of room 1408 with the crude letters. The secret is your salvation. And as you're back on the blood-red carpet of room 1408 again, Gina lights up and whispers in awe. The secret is your salvation. Ah, of course, Froggen exclaims. The last part of that letter. It's a spell. I'll take care of it. Frogren faces the door of room 1408 and shouts, "Toranium, Restorium!" And as he does, the door handle of room 1408 slowly rebuilds itself, just like sand running backwards in an hourglass, until the door handle is completely restored again. We solved the mystery of the door's salvation message. Well done, everyone! Gina happily exclaims as she lifts both of her hands in high five motions. Frogren uses his float spell on himself so that he can high five Gina properly. Then both Gina and Frogren face you with raised hands in high five gestures. And here you decide in what manner you, Gina and Frogren share high fives. This is your adventuring party, after all. Gina smiles and Frogren grins happily. And none of us are dead either, Frogren exclaims happily as Gina smiles in response. Let's open that door now, Frogren continues. The air is getting kinda stale in here. Gina hesitates for a moment. But what about the secret? Gina asks, as the scroll of sovereignty floats in the air above the golden chest, still encapsulated by Frogren's transparent magic cube. Yeah, Frogren says, lost in thought. Well, I really don't feel comfortable messing around with it any further, considering the looming threat of death surrounding it and all, and we still don't know who hid it there, other than it must have been a powerful black magic user. Frogren nervously adjusts his green alpine-shaped glasses. Any ideas, Gina? Well, Gina replies. Is your spell permanent, Frogren? Or do you need to keep focusing on it? Gina asks Frogren. It's permanent until I choose to dispel it, Frogren replies. Maybe it's for the best to leave the scroll behind for now then, Gina replies. Perhaps Essa can analyze its black magic further one day. Gina freezes for a moment and slowly gazes around the room. After we've gotten ourselves to safety, that is. Sounds like a plan, Gina, Frogren replies. Just through this door, learn the boogeyman's true name somehow, so the entrance doors in the foyer will open, and then finally escape this crappy inn. Let's go! Frogren finishes as he meets his gaze with Gina's and then with yours, as he starts making welcoming gestures towards your only exit. But as soon as the three of you face the door to room 1408, with the goal of finally leaving this horrendously creepy inn, the door suddenly swings open by someone else. The boogeyman is considered by many to be fear incarnate. But what is its true name? Tonight, you and your two friends will find out. Before this story finally ends, you will know the boogeyman's true name. But the thing is, you and your two friends will first need to face your most difficult challenge yet. A challenge that will end up in one of you not leaving this room alive. And because of actions by people unseen, or perhaps because of an action by yourself, no one is coming to help you either. In this challenge, your party stands completely alone. I wish you the best of luck, because you're going to need it. But before your final challenge can begin, Talestriber, if you like my storytelling, hit subscribe for a potato. But also so you won't miss any of my upcoming stories or reading ambience videos. You can also get some free stories by becoming an official member of the Tales Tribe. You do that by subscribing to Birger Tales newsletter at birgertales.com. Check out the link in the description or in the pinned comment below. I look forward to welcoming you into the official Tales tribe. And now, let's finish this story. And as the door of room 1408 swings up, a hoarse and stifled voice exclaims, "Are you all right?" asks a pale-skinned and wrinkled-looking man, dressed in a black and white butler uniform. Your host Blackthorn's eyes then dart from side to side until they fix onto the gaping black hole in the wall of room 1408, and before any of you have the time to react, Blackthorn places both of his white-gloved hands on his cheeks and shouts, "What? What have you done?" "Oh," Gina exclaims embarrassedly. We can explain. You see, the boogeyman." "The boogeyman, you say?" Blackthorn interrupts. "Yes, and we found this scroll," Gina explains, as she points at the black hole in the wall. But as she does, she suddenly freezes, as if someone just hit her pause button. She starts shaking. I can't move," Gina exclaims in panic. "Of course you can't," Blackthorn replies coldly, as his open palm is reached out towards Gina. "Blackthorn, what are you?" Frogrin exclaims, as he prepares to run towards Blackthorn and Gina. But Frogrin also freezes, in mid-step no less, as Frogrin starts shaking, just like Gina did before him. You notice that Blackthorn now has his other open palm reach out towards Frogrin. "You're not going anywhere," Blackthorn growls. "And you!" Blackthorn exclaims, as his gaze pierces yours. "If you hadn't come, things would have been much easier," Blackthorn says to you with dark eyes. "Your foresight is powerful, so I could only block it for so long. You've been a real thorn in my side, and now I will finally take that sword." There's a tingling behind your right ear. For the very first time, you don't see the future, but the past. You see Gina on the porch outside of the Boogeyman Inn, reading Blackthorn's invitation letter. "And Gina reads, I've long dreamed of seeing the legendary sword Shilihido in person, so if you could bring it along as well, I'd be delighted." A white flash. You then see yourself, Gina and Frogrin, inside the foyer of the Boogeyman Inn, and as the three of you start moving towards the gold-decorated stairway, Blackthorn's eyes sparkle as he catches the sight of Gina's sword, Shilihido, on her back. "Ah, there it is," Blackthorn utters. "Marvelous." Another white flash. You see that the dark brown owl clock of room 1408 has just struck 12, and you, Gina and Frogrin are lying in your beds. Next, you see the green-handed thing and his horrendous and anglerfish-like lips twisted into a sinister smile as it slowly floats out of the closet of room 1408. The green-handed thing wears a smile that gets wider and wider the closer it gets to Gina's sword. And you're back in front of Blackthorn, the now malicious-looking host of the Boogeyman Inn, with your two friends by your sides, still frozen and shaking because of Blackthorn's magic. "How quaint," Blackthorn utters mockingly. "Use your foresight all you want. It won't change a thing." Blackthorn claps his hands together, which makes your own body freeze and shake, just like Gina's and Frogrin's do. Blackthorn then bends his pointing fingers and long fingers in a quick motion, and you, Gina and Frogrin quickly slide across the blood-red carpet of room 1408 and stop just in front of Blackthorn at the open door of room 1408.
And it especially won't change anything about me finally claiming this sword.
Blackthorn finishes with a malicious grin as he reaches one of his white-gloved hands towards Gina's sword, which is still strapped onto her back. But before Blackthorn reaches Gina's sword on her yellow hoodie, black smoke materializes just behind Blackthorn, and a dark figure steps out of it. The black smoke completely dissipates, and you can see that this figure has green skin, as well as green, hairy, and clawed fingers. The green-handed thing, finally completely visible, is dressed in a purple robe, and it has a long pointy nose reminiscent of a troll's, as well as the gigantic lips with dark yellow and shark-like teeth that stick out in all directions. Its upper face is shrouded in thick darkness that is perhaps magical in nature, and what can be seen of its eyes shine out of the thick darkness of its purple hood like a couple of dimly lit light bulbs.
How nice of you to grace us with your presence, Master.
Blackthorn says as he slightly gazes behind his back towards the green-handed thing, without completely removing his gaze from you, Gina, and Frogrin. The three of you shake as the green-handed thing gazes upon Frogrin, Gina, and then finally on you.
Reek of fear, for I am your boogeyman.
The green-handed thing, or the boogeyman as you've been calling him, states in a deep, guttural voice.
And the Blackthorn.
The boogeyman continues.
Well done for keeping them here.
Blackthorn bows courteously in response. The boogeyman! Frogrin snaps. Just tell us your true name already so we can—
Silence!
The boogeyman's voice booms as his purple, light bulb-like eyes give off a searing bright glow for a single second. In that same second, a feeling reminiscent of someone violently sitting down on your back envelops you as your whole body gets violently pressed down to the floor by some unseen force. And as you survey your surroundings, you can see that both Frogrin and Gina are being pressed down to the floor as well, just as violently as you are. And as this realization hits you, the boogeyman gently pushes Blackthorn aside as he slowly and gracefully walks into room 1408. Blackthorn places himself in front of the door's opening, standing upright and tall like a king's guard, as the boogeyman's gracious steps stop just in front of Gina. He bends down towards Gina's yellow hoodie, puts his green, hairy, and clawed hand on Gina's sword, and unsheathes it. No! Gina exclaims with clenched teeth. Standing upright again, the boogeyman gazes upon the brilliant reflections of Gina's silver sword in awe.
At last, the power closest to the Oracle itself is finally mine.
The boogeyman triumphantly utters.
How I've longed for this moment.
The boogeyman sighs as he starts to slowly and gracefully walk around the three of you in a circle as he continues speaking.
To steal something so important to you. Something that helps you keep your fear at bay.
The The boogeyman's eyes sparkle with purple malice.
You three will never know my true name. The doors of the Boogeyman Inn shall remain closed to you forever for what you have done.
Doomed for asking your name, or what? Ogrin shouts. You can see Gina fighting off her sudden urge to giggle, but the boogeyman, utterly unmoved by Frogrin's humor, just continues walking in a circle around you, as if he never heard Frogrin's comment to begin with.
You not only came here to steal my scroll of sovereignty that I personally hid here a long time ago, but you also burned down my forest of purple thorns, and you even had the gall to trespass into my own stronghold.
What stronghold? Frogrin exclaims confusedly as he keeps being magically pressed down against the floor's blood-red carpet.
Why, Castle Nyctophobia, of course.
The boogeyman states matter-of-factly. Gina's eyes suddenly grow wide in realization and then looks at you with an apologetic look. Ah, that explains it. Only Gina and our friend went on that mission, but Frogrin grins to himself mischievously. They did tell me how crappy that place felt. Frogrin replies with a wide and clenched grin. The boogeyman just scoffs and continues speaking and walking in a circle around the three of you.
And the worst of all,
the boogeyman continues.
You three undid a plot thousands of years in the making by breaking the darkness curse I had personally put on that wretched excuse of a king.
You cursed King Balthazar! Gina exclaims in shock as she keeps getting pressed down to the floor's blood-red carpet.
Never utter that name in my presence,
the boogeyman hisses as you feel an even more intense pressure above your back for a second.
You see this?
The boogeyman exclaims as he gestures towards his green and hairy skin, as well as his hideous face.
1,000 years ago, as I cursed him, he did this to me.
The boogeyman hisses in anger. He then takes a deep breath to compose himself and continues.
He somehow managed to transfer a part of the darkness curse onto me.
The boogeyman chuckles to himself.
I wanted him to suffer in that darkness form forever for what he did to me. Not just for a mere 1,000 years, but you three spoiled that.
The boogeyman says as his purple eyes within the thick darkness of his hood glow brighter for a second. Magistrate W, Gina determinedly states.
Read his letter,
Magistrate W replies, impressed.
While not my full name, I had that erased from the letter 1,000 years ago. I'm still impressed you managed to find out that much without dying.
Magistrate, for what you did to the Forgotten Kingdom, Gina determinedly continues as she locks her gaze with Magistrate W's. What you did to King Balthazar, Magistrate W's large lips and shark-like teeth are bent downwards in disgust. I'd say you deserve that form, Gina finishes. An earthquake-like shockwave shakes the very foundations of the boogeyman Inn as Gina violently gets yanked up into the air right in front of Magistrate W's hideous form. The magistrate's purple eyes glow searingly bright.
Oh, dare you!
Magistrate W hisses with poisonous hatred as he presses Shiligido's silver blade tightly against Gina's throat.
Mocked by a paladin, a warrior of light, and a human no less.
Magistrate W hisses in disgust, after which he recomposes himself slightly, while still pressing Chiliido against Gina's throat.
Humans are fragile, fickle beings whose hearts change like the tides, and especially those of the light. But your heart and your light shall be snuffed out tonight.
Time stops for a moment, as you once again hear those thoughts that aren't your own, whispering, "Do you know the boogeyman's true name, and who will die?" And you see a quick flash of the blurry vision of the dead person lying just below the scroll of sovereignty and the hole in room 1408's wall. Back in reality again, Magistrate W raises Gina's silver sword above his head, aiming towards Gina's throat. Gina looks to the side and tightly presses her eyelids together. Blackthorn, still standing in the doorway of room 1408, watches the scene with delight and grins maliciously.
Gina!
Thorgrim screams as he tries to raise his arms to cast spells, but he can't move an inch because the pressuring magic is still keeping him glued to the floor's blood-red carpet. Thorgrim's green and ale pint-shaped glasses turn to fix their gaze with yours as he pleadingly screams,
Friend, do something!
And in that very moment, there's a tingling behind your right ear. Once again, for some reason, you don't see the future, but the past. You see room 1408's dark brown hour clock pointing towards 12 o'clock, as Magistrate W, or the green-handed thing as you once knew him, gets engulfed by the rainbow light coming from Gina's sword, Chiliido. Magistrate W wails as he covers his purple eyes. He backs away and quickly flees with the help of his black magic smoke. Back in room 1408 again, still getting pressed down into its blood-red carpet, you see with amazement that Gina's silver sword isn't in Magistrate W's green, hairy, and clawed hand any longer, but in yours. Magistrate W looks at the hand he once held Chiliido in, then drops Gina to the floor in mere shock when he sees that you are the one suddenly holding the silver sword.
How?
Magistrate W manages to utter, shocked and confused, just before the silver sword in your hand finally starts shining with rainbow light. Magistrate W wails in panic as he desperately covers his eyes with his purple robe, just before his black smoke billows up again to protect him. In that same moment, Blackthorn falls backwards in utter shock, which makes him hit the corridor floor outside room 1408 with a loud thud. Then, the magic that has been violently pushing you and your two friends against the floor of room 1408 suddenly lets go. The three of you can move freely again. Thorgrim swiftly jumps up to his feet, grins and nods at you as bright red fire magic starts covering both of his arms as he braces himself to protect the party. Gina graciously stands up, her blonde hair swaying like silk in the wind. She reaches out her hand towards yours, and the silver sword Chiliido flies right into Gina's grasp. Once again, she nods at you in deep appreciation before she determinedly faces Magistrate W. As the bright rainbow light coming for Chiliido suddenly dims, you see that your hand, in which you were just holding Chiliido, actually isn't empty. In it is now a transparent, sea wave-like rainbow energy that looks just like Gina's sword. And in Gina's hand, you see that Shiligido itself also shimmers with a similar sea wave-like rainbow energy, just as if mimicking the energy sword in your hand. When Magistrate W also notices this, he suddenly lowers his black smoke.
Blackthorn, you fool! How could you have missed this?
Magistrate W hisses in pure anger. Lying on his back in the corridor outside of room 1408, Blackthorn sits up with a groan, desperately trying to regain his composure.
Please forgive me, Master Eye. This human.
Magistrate W utters, completely ignoring Blackthorn, in a mixture of awe and shock, as he starts pointing his green finger at you.
This human not only sees the future, but the past as well.
Blackthorn's eyes grow wide as Magistrate W shouts,
This human is the Oracle! The Oracle? The most powerful magic user ever to exist in the land of Halador!
Blackthorn exclaims in utter shock. Both Gina and Frogwyn meet your gaze with amazement and shouts in unison.
You're the Oracle?
Yes, forget that meaningless sword, Blackthorn. Seize the Oracle.
Magistrate W orders as he starts floating right above the blood-red carpet of room 1408. Magistrate W's purple robe starts swaying as if the wind had just entered the room.
Without my true name, they can never hope to escape us either. We'll chase them all around the inn if we have to.
The magistrate states, as he gestures to Blackthorn to join him. Without hesitation, Blackthorn runs up next to his master and puts his arms in a boxer-like fighting stance.
For thousands of years I have longed for the powers of the Oracle, and now they shall finally be mine.
Magistrate W finishes as he spreads out his arms and fingers as if mimicking a godlike statue. And as he does, Gina and Frogwyn quickly run up to your sides. You'll have to go through us first, Gina determinedly states as she firmly grabs her rainbow shimmering silver sword with both of her hands. Frogwyn nods.
Yeah, stay the thick away from our friend.
Frogwyn firmly exclaims as he takes on a karate-like fighting stance, as crimson red fire starts swirling all around him. Within the thick darkness of Magistrate W's hood, the form of his purple eyes transition from light bulb-like into burning purple fire.
I didn't live hundreds of lifetimes to be stopped by the likes of you.
Magistrate W firmly hisses. He raises one of his green pointing fingers into the air as black smoke billows up and starts to constantly swirl around his arm, like a sea maelstrom, as purple lightning starts crackling out of his pointing finger through the black smoke maelstrom, and as the purple light from his magic makes the oxblood-colored floral wallpaper of room 1408 flicker, the magistrate shouts,
On guard!
As the magistrate points his sparkling and green pointer finger towards Gina, Frogwyn jumps up into the air, and you unexpectedly get grabbed by Gina's soft hands as she forcefully jabs the two of you to the side. Just as an intense shockwave of purple and flickering lightning bolts hits the floor where the three of you once stood, the floor crackles. There's now a large and black scorch mark making a crude hole in room 1408's blood-red carpet. Or rather, what's left of it. It's very clear now. Just one hit from the magistrate's magic could end up killing any one of you. Still in the air, Frogwyn redirects himself and his fire magic towards Blackthorn, feet first, where all his fire magic also gathers. Frogrin's blazing feet hit Blackthorn, but just against his crossed arms' defensive position, some kind of transparent magic sparkles as Blackthorn's arms appear completely undamaged. He gives off a malicious grin. Despite his apparent age, Blackthorn is still quicker than lightning. As the magistrate's green pointing finger and black maelstrom-like arm is raised to the roof again, Gina shouts, "Friend, use your sword!" as she points at the transparent sea wave-like rainbow energy in your hand. Like this! Gina braces herself with the silver sword Shiligido in hand when the magistrate's magic pulsates and rushes towards you and Gina like an incoming purple train. And with a golf club-like swing, Gina still manages to hit the purple lightning. Her blonde hair and yellow hoodie sways rhythmically with her motions as the purple calamity gets countered back towards the magistrate's head, and he ducks, and his black magic rushes by, just above his head. The magistrate gazes at yet another hole in room 1408's wall that's been created by his own magic. Then he swiftly faces you and Gina. His shark-like teeth crackles when he annoyedly grinds them together. He counterattacks by shooting thin, lightning-fast purple bolts of lightning towards Gina, but by instinct, you're placed right in front of Gina, with your transparent rainbow sword raised in a protective stance. And those thin and purple lightning bolts, they directly hit your transparent sword, but somehow, the thin and purple lightning bolts get completely absorbed by it. Gina puts her hand on your shoulder and nods with a thankful smile. The magistrate's anglerfish-like lips bends downwards as his yellow and shark-like teeth glisten in the aftermath of his purple magic. He gazes upon you and Gina. His burning purple eyes sparkle with hate. Blackthorn, with Frogrin's burning feet still placed against his crossed arms, lets go and swiftly jabs his formerly crossed arms into the air instead, which makes a shocked Frogrin fall backwards onto the floor. As he does, his fire magic disappears in a puff of smoke, and in the blink of an eye, Blackthorn lifts up Frogrin with one of his butler-like shoes and kicks Frogrin right into room 1408's dark brown owl clock. Its glass shatters and twinkles down towards Frogrin like razor-sharp falling stars. Despite looking dizzy and flustered, Frogrin still has the wits about him to cover himself with some kind of yellow and transparent magic energy. The glass shards from the clock, which would have caused serious damage to Frogrin's skin, now falls onto this magical barrier instead, which gives off a sound like pine cones falling onto a sheet metal roof. As the glass shards lie scattered on the floor around Frogrin, he makes a satisfied grin as Blackthorn frowns. As Magistrate W's eyes flashes with hatred, and as his anglerfish-like lips transition into a malicious grin, he now raises both of his arms into the air. Black smoke builds up like maelstroms along both of his arms now, as he swiftly and violently swings them both downwards towards Gina. For some reason, the magistrate keeps concentrating his attacks on Gina and seems to be actively avoiding casting any kind of magic towards you. Completely caught off guard by the magistrate's double attack, Gina doesn't get enough time to do another swing with Shiligido. Instead, she protectively raises it in front of herself. As the purple magic forcefully hits Gina's protective sword stance, the magic itself explodes, and Gina is mercifully struck down to the floor by the explosion's shockwave. But that isn't the worst. In the explosion, Gina's silver sword Shiligido is stunningly hit out of her hands, spins away into the air, and gets jabbed deeply into room 1408's oxblood-colored floral wallpaper, just above the gaping black hole in the wall, which still contains the softly floating and still magically encapsulated Scroll of Sovereignty, also known as the Secret of the Boogeyman. In the aftermath of the explosion sends purple sparks all across the room, some of which hit room 1408's bunk bed, the one Gina and Frogrin had been sleeping in. The purple sparks gradually weathers down the whole bunk bed into ash. Other purple sparks, however, are instinctively blocked by you as your transparent rainbow sword swings around you just in front of you, an action which protects both yourself and the others from harm. But when your newly discovered sword stops swinging, it starts to flicker, and at the same time as the sword flickers, so does Shilijido. A painful groan can be heard from Gina as she lies on her back on room 1408's blood-red carpet. Frogrin lets go of his yellow magic shield and magically raises the glass shards that once belonged to room 1408's dark brown owl clock into the air and quickly throws them towards Blackthorn. They are shot right towards him, just like an incoming sheaf of razor-sharp arrows. Lightning fast as he is, as soon as Blackthorn notices Gina without her silver sword, he effortlessly jumps past the incoming glass shards, conjures a black iron chain out of thin air that swings around Frogrin in just a single second. Frogrin is completely wrapped up in chains and trapped. Blackthorn then flashes right by you, grabs Gina by the throat, and plants himself and her just in front of the floating scroll of sovereignty. In your hand, your transparent sword and its sea wave-like rainbow light flickers faster and faster until both the rainbow light and the transparent sword disappears. And as soon as they do, someone grabs your collar and violently lifts you up into the air.
Got you.
Magistrate W states as he bobs up and down, floating above room 1408's blood-red carpet.
No more rainbow light for you.
He states mockingly. Still grabbed by your collar, you hang helplessly in the air, right in front of the sinister magistrate.
I know you noticed that I didn't attack you, but why, you are surely wondering.
The magistrate's purple eyes shine.
To break your connection to Shilijido, of course, but also because in order for me to use your oracle magic, I need you alive.
And the magistrate's horrendous anglerfish-like lips and yellow shark-like teeth turn into a gleeful grin. Standing in front of the gaping black hole of room 1408 and the floating scroll of sovereignty, your host Blackthorn keeps Gina in a chokehold to prevent her from escaping, and Frogrin lies helpless and magically chained a few meters away by what remains of room 1408's dark brown hour clock.
And now, Oracle,
Magistrate W says to you, as you're still hanging by your collar in the air, pressed up tightly against him.
Now I will take what is rightfully mine.
Magistrate W raises one of his green pointy fingers into the air as the black smoke billows up and starts to swirl around his arm like a sea maelstrom, and as purple lightning starts crackling out of his pointy finger, he says,
Removing your power will destroy you, but rejoice, for your friends will join you shortly.
Gina and Frogrin meet your gaze for a short moment, and as you gaze upon the magistrate's following smile, of which maliciousness you've never experienced in your entire life, everything gets dark, and you hear the familiar whispers. Do you know the Boogeyman's true name? And who will die? And the following moment, you hear nothing and see nothing. Darkness, blackness, nothingness, whatever you want to call it, is what completely surrounds you. It's cold, but also somewhat peaceful, as you float here in the abyss, in the beyond, in complete and utter darkness. Here, you don't need to wonder anymore. No more worries, no more fear, no need to think or feel, because you, my friend, you are dead. The end. But as all appears lost, there's a warmth and a bright light. You're floating in the air as the oxblood-colored floral wallpaper of room 1408 shimmers with pure and serenely white light. The magistrate is also floating in the air, but a few meters away from you, desperately covering his hideous green face with his purple cloak, and in your hand is a serenely white sword. No rainbow colors, just pure white. And all that happens next happens in just a few seconds. Your sword shoots out a broad ray of pure light, which instantly hits the magistrate. In slow motion, after being hit, he lunges backwards a few centimeters, as if being hit in the stomach by a boxing glove. His purple light bulb-like eyes flicker with surprise and shock, and a crack, followed by a myriad of other cracks, not in the wall of the Boogeyman Inn, but in the fabrics of time and space itself, appears just behind the magistrate. The shock that your light ray and the following cracks in time and space gives Blackthorn makes him almost trip, losing his concentration, and the black chains that are holding Frogrin completely break, and their links rattle onto the room's blood-red carpet like cereal being poured into an empty bowl. Frogrin grins, satisfied. Blackthorn's chokehold on Gina loosens as he trips, and Gina instantly takes advantage of this, swiftly ducking herself out of Blackthorn's clutches. Her blonde hair sways with her swift movements, and she reaches her hand towards Shilihido, which is still jabbed deep into the wall of room 1408, right above the gaping black hole that contains the still floating and magically encapsulated scroll of sovereignty. Shilihido instantly swishes out of the wall, without any effort at all, and even drives its sword handle into Blackthorn's back on the way, which makes Blackthorn fall to the floor and onto his stomach. While stunned, he still manages to quickly roll around onto his back instead, just in time to see Shilihido arrive in his mistress' hand again. Blackthorn, you've been a terrible host, Gina utters as she looks down on him with a silver sword drawn. But I don't kill, Gina simply states, before she leaps backwards to join Frogrin by the remains of the dark brown owl clock.
Ah, how gracious of you,
Blackthorn says, before he throws a hidden knife, which he must have kept in his butler uniform, right towards Gina. Without a second thought, Frogrin throws a fireball at the knife, which melts it before it arrives anywhere near Gina. Frogrin then nails Blackthorn's arms and feet to the ground with what remains of the wood that once was the beds of room 1408. Gina smiles at Frogrin in appreciation, but Blackthorn frowns. Frogrin then meets Blackthorn's gaze, adjusts his green alpine-shaped glasses, gives off a wide grin, and shouts, "Dispel!" And the magic cube encapsulating the scroll of sovereignty right above Blackthorn instantly evaporates, which sends the scroll falling towards the floor. In horror, Blackthorn watches as the scroll falls right onto his face. The scroll, also the secret of the Boogeyman Inn, turns to dust immediately. It was really old, just as Gina thought, and Blackthorn, the once mysterious host of the Boogeyman Inn, dies instantly. The scroll really could kill someone, and in a blink of an eye, you see your previous vision, with a blurry body in front of the gaping black hole of room 1408. The blurriness suddenly disappears and reveals Blackthorn's body. Who is going to die? The mysterious thought that isn't your own whispers one last time as the vision fades. Magistrate W, who's still in the air and has still not properly recovered from your light ray blast, tries to recover his breath with one of his green hands placed on his chest as you, Gina and Frogrin band together on the floor in front of him. The cracks in time and space behind the magistrate grow deeper and start to crackle.
I've done my best to scare you.
Magistrate W says while staring off in the distance.
You even saw me as a boogeyman, the name of fear itself. Despite that, you fought me twice, and still you continue to defy me.
Magistrate W gazes upon the gaping black hole in room 1408's wall and on what remains of Blackthorn.
You destroyed my scroll. You even managed to kill Blackthorn.
Magistrate W lifts his head and gazes upon you and your party, his purple eyes glowing dimly.
What is so different about you? Why are you so brave?
Because, Gina says, as she points Chiligido towards the magistrate, and joining her, Frogrin points one of his fire-covered pointing fingers, followed by your newly discovered light sword. And Gina smiles determinedly. We are so brave because we feel the fear and do it anyway. And as a rainbow ray, a fire ray, and a ray of pure light is shot towards the magistrate, but avoids him and hits the cracks in time and space right behind him instead. A large hole cracks open, which pulls the magistrate right in. As the hole in time and space starts mending itself right before your party's very eyes, and as the magistrate slowly falls deeper into it, there's a tingling behind your right ear. In pure darkness, the magistrate stands before you, his purple eyes burning with hatred, but also with admiration.
I'm not finished with you just yet, Oracle.
Magistrate W says.
You really are powerful, just as the legends say. But you, escaping my grasp today, only postpones the inevitable. Even though your magic is powerful, my magic is still not to be trifled with. And one day, I shall have the Oracle's powers. Of that, you can be certain, as long as my name is...
You see the magically locked double entrance doors of the Boogeyman Inn, and they open. You, Gina and Frogrin leave the Boogeyman Inn and its uncovered secret as you fly across the skies in Frogrin's flying saucer. The very same saucer you first arrived at the inn with. The warm light of dawn shines into the saucer's cockpit and gently caresses the three of you. You and your party just survived a night with the Boogeyman. Can't believe we were actually brave enough to stand up to a 1,000-year-old black magic user. Gina exclaims. The one that cursed King Balthazar of the Forgotten Kingdom, no less.
Yeah, sure felt epic, didn't it?
Frogrin says.
And we even met the witch Essa again.
Yeah, Gina replies. And we learned that the secret of the Boogeyman Inn was actually a collection of manipulative ways to use the media to control people.
After today, I'm never going to listen to what the media has to say again,
Frogrin says firmly. And I will definitely start analyzing any media I watch with the concepts of shame, guilt, and fear from now on, in order to protect my actions and feelings from being influenced.
Fair enough,
Frogrin answers.
And you, friend?
Frogrin says as he meets your gaze.
As it turns out, you're actually the legendary entity known as the Oracle. Fancy title, eh?
Frogrin says with a warm grin.
Wish I had one.
Frogrin pouts. Well, Gina says to Frogrin. You and I actually already have titles, Frogrin. You're a wizard, and I'm a paladin.
True that. Forgot that for a moment there.
But now when you mention it, Gina continues. Our party doesn't have a title. We are a trio, like a tribe of sorts.
Yeah, and we experienced many stories together,
Frogrin adds. Of course, Gina exclaims. Our party shall henceforth be known as the Tails Tribe.
Has a good ring to it. Sure, why not?
Frogrin answers, satisfied.
And this flying saucer, I want it to belong to the whole party from now on, not just to me,
Frogrin says with a wide grin. Sounds awesome, Frogrin, Gina answers, as she gives Frogrin a fist bump. And friend, Gina meets your gaze with a warm smile. Calling you the Oracle, even though that is one of your titles, wouldn't feel right, since our new archenemy is most likely going to keep calling you that, and just calling you friend doesn't fit the party's mood enough anymore, and even though you'll still be our friend, of course. So, both Gina and Frogrin happily meet your gaze, as Gina declares, From now on, Frogrin and I will be calling you Tailstriber. And with that, your party's flying saucer and your Tailstribe flies towards the horizon, maybe towards that gloomy island over there. Who knows? But one thing is for certain, you're flying towards new adventures in the land of Haladar. Together. But just as you do, there's a tingling behind your right ear. The Boogeyman is considered by many to be fear incarnate. But what is its true name? Tonight, you and your two friends will find out. After you watch this story to its very end, you will also find a free behind-the-scenes post from Patreon in the description or in the pinned comment below. In it, you will learn how your choices influenced the direction of this story, among other things. To read it, you just need to become a free Patreon member, and as the name implies, doing so is completely free, no strings attached, and becoming a free member is super easy and takes just a minute. This behind the scenes post is really cool too, so I hope to see you there, Tailstriber. There's a tingling behind your right ear. The Boogeyman is considered by many to be fear incarnate. But what is its true name? Tonight, you and your two friends will find out. In pure darkness, the magistrate stands before you, yet again, his purple eyes burning with hatred.
One day, I shall have the Oracle's powers. Of that you can be certain. As long as my name is Magistrate Vortimer.
The end. click or tap the screen here to watch another dark fantasy story from Beer Tales. Check out free stories and get early access with the links in the description or the pinned comment below. And a special thank you to all of my Patreon members who made this story possible.